And 61 was before all the other assassinations, right? Like people wouldn't be jumping up and saying, "This guy, we had FBI, we had FBI bugs. Look, here's a bug right here in my hand." It was before all that. Malcolm and...
Yes, it was. That's also interesting because, see, maybe they were getting the ducks in a row for killing John F. Kennedy. Because, see, if Hemingway had been alive when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, this is a guy who would not have kept his mouth shut.
All right.
He would have been speaking up right away. And he was a dangerous man like Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and John F. Kennedy, because this is a guy who has courage, okay? And he is not afraid to speak his mind. And as Kennedy said, he has grace under pressure. That's a quote from Hemingway in Profiles in Courage. And this guy, like Thomas Merton, he had an audience. I mean, when Hemingway spoke, people listened. People knew him. He was a famous author, so he had a platform. Now, you could say something or I could say something, but nobody, you don't have the audience of Ernest Hemingway or Thomas Merton.
Not yet. I'm working on it.
So we're working on it. I mean, there's a famous quote from Paul Goodman. He said, in America, you can say anything you want as long as it has no effect. But see, Hemingway was a guy who had an effect. And I think this was also around the time of the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And he had connections to Cuba, and he had friends in Cuba. And I don't think he was going to be sit quiet about that either. That was something that
at the time. Did anybody raise suspicions at the time
of Hemingway's death?
Yeah.
No,
not even a peep.
No. Everybody, we believed what the newspaper said. I mean, even if they said something as ridiculous as the Washington Post said, well, what did the headline say? Authorities will let the people judge Hemingway case. They actually published that. Let the public decide if it was accident or suicide. Well, that's not how it's supposed to be done. And they come up with these conclusions of a suicide or an accident, and they don't have to provide any evidence. I mean, the news media says this is what happened, and that's it. And most Americans trust, at least in those days, they trusted the press. That, if there was something wrong, they'd tell us. Well, I think most people are getting wise to that. If there's something wrong, they're not telling.
Yeah, you think so? I don't even know about that anymore. But listen, we only got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw in here with this Hemingway? Yeah, it's kind of depressing, man, to think that they killed Hemingway. Yeah. Well, but something. I told a friend of mine once. He was a good friend too. This is my friend Pierre. I said to him, Pierre, I said, the truth is very disturbing. And he said, yes, it is, Hugh, but he said, it's liberating. It's liberating. I think that's the important thing. That's why the truth is so important to me. It is liberating. So I'd rather know the truth than to be ignorant. And that's why I wrote these books with Martin, the martyrdom of Thomas Merton, an investigation, and we wrote a second one, Thomas Merton's Betrayers. Yeah. The case against Abbott James Fox and author John Howard Griffin. And that's why Patrick Knowlton and I worked with John Clark and tried to get the truth out about, the FBI cover-up in our own country. And our website is FBIcoverup.com. There's a hyphen between cover and up hyphen. But, it's liberating to know the truth. And see, if I hadn't done my research on these other cases, the things that are wrong with this case wouldn't pop up to me. I wouldn't recognize all of the things that are wrong here. And do you have this book by Gordon Gebhardt, Practical Homicide Investigation? No, I do not. No, I was never really much homicide work in my career.
It's pretty. Well, I'll tell you something. It's pretty depressing. I don't know why anybody would get in this field because if you look at the pictures in this book, I wouldn't be able to go home at night and look at this stuff, and I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would carry it with me for days. But Gebhardt has a very nice thing in the very beginning of his book, the very first page. It has a quote from the fifth commandment of the Holy Bible. It says, "Thou shalt not kill." And then he does his little thing about an oath about a homicide investigator, why their work is so important. And he says at the very end, he says, and remember, we work for God. And I think it's so nice that he puts that in there
because it is important to have homicide investigators that are really professionals and take their job seriously, because they are doing the work for God. And I'm really impressed by Gebra's book, but sometimes you have to have a book like this to learn about things like gunshot residue and, you know, what should be and shouldn't be at a crime scene, what's missing at a crime scene that should be there. I mean, it's a really excellent book, and that's why they use it at all the police academies.
And you talk about those photos. If you look at the Netflix documentary of the death of Danny Castellaro, they show the crime scene in that bathroom, which is blood splattered all over the walls and the side of the tub, and the dark blood in the tub. It just is horrific. But, Mr. Hugh Turley, we are out of time. Check out Murder of Vince Foster, The Assassination of James Forrestal, the FBI cover-up.com. Go back and look at all the archives we've done with Hugh Turley about the
Thomas Merton's murder.
The Thomas Merton stuff.
Well, anytime you got a homicide case, you can call me up and consult with me. I'm not a homicide investigator, but I've learned quite a bit about it over the years, what to look for, it's been fun.
Well, I'm definitely going to consult.
I always enjoy talking to you.
Oh, no, me too, yeah. If I ever have a missing rabbit case, I know right where to look, right in your hat. Okay, my friend.
Yeah, well, and that's why I named my rabbit Stu, so I wouldn't starve.
Okay, that's a good one, man. Thank you so much, Hugh Turley.
Okay, bye.
Good night, sir.